Hello and welcome back to A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over politics. I'm your host, Jeff Charles, and today, now this is going to sound like it's going to be boring, but it's not. We're going to talk about a House Budget Committee hearing. Don't go away. Don't go anywhere. All right. This isn't going to be boring. I know it sounds like a snooze fest, but this is very interesting. But before I get into that, you already know what I want you to do. I want you to like this. I want you to share this. And you got to subscribe, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. That way you'll be updated whenever I upload a new episode. So also before I get into everything, you got to head on over to Chasing Liberty. That's my Substack. You can find that at libertychasers.com. You can get all my writings, you can get some videos talking all about liberty and how much I hate the government and how much you should hate the government too. But anyway, without further ado, um, you guys know I've been looking into the healthcare industry. I did a previous video and podcast episode on this, discussing how America got to where most of us are relying on our employers for healthcare, and I kind of explained the history of how the government basically brought that about. It also led to the creation of Medicare and Medicaid. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already, but you don't need to really understand what I'm talking about here. But earlier this month, the House Budget Committee had a hearing, and the title of the hearing was Breaking Up Healthcare Monopolies. So I'm going to first touch on some of the opening remarks from Chairman Jody Arrington, Republican from Texas. But really what I want to talk about are statements made by somebody else, Mr. McKay Jemison, who is the executive director of Patients Rising. So the focus is how government intervention has led to a ton of problems for patients, things like that. And that's really what this hearing was about. So just to give you an idea of what Chairman Jody Arrington talked about, he didn't pull any punches. And first, he started out by discussing the fiscal challenges facing the United States. So prepare to get depressed. For those of you who don't already know these numbers, our national debt is approaching a staggering $35 trillion. With the Now, there's an alarming debt to GDP ratio of over 123%. Now, to put that into perspective, that's higher than it was during World War II. Even worse is that we're spending nearly 60 cents on every dollar just to service this debt. This year alone, our interest payments will exceed what we spend on national defense and Medicare. And this is what Jody Arrington was bringing up. Our interest payments are outpacing critical spending on things like healthcare, national security, yada, 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 yada. But here's the ironic part. Arrington also brought up the fact that federal healthcare spending is actually the biggest driver of this debt. Uh, you would think it was the military and stuff like that, which, that takes up a lot of it too. But healthcare spending is the biggest driver of the debt. The Congressional Budget Office predicts that spending on major healthcare programs will nearly double from $1.7 trillion this year, 2024, to $3.2 trillion by 2034. Just in case you weren't already depressed enough. Is that good, or do I need to depress you some more? Let's keep going. So basically, healthcare spending is growing faster than our economy, and this obviously is not sustainable. This doesn't even include all of the other trash and waste and overreach that our federal government spends the money that it steals from us in the form of taxation to fund this stuff. Now, one of the main culprits, according to Representative Arrington, is the consolidation of the healthcare market. So from 2002 to 2020, there were over 1,000 hospitals merging together, which means that the prices for services in highly concentrated markets are significantly higher, sometimes between 14 and 13%. Now, we can't forget about the prescription drug market, where 79% of drug claims are controlled by just three, count them, three pharmacy benefit managers. So this is driving up costs for everyone. In my last video, I talked about how healthcare spending has gotten out of control, about how before the 1920s, most people paid for healthcare out of their pockets before we started getting employer-based healthcare insurance. And remember, health insurance is not the same thing as health care. So I want to continue to drive that point home. Now, obviously, Arrington did have some policy solutions here. He discussed the reverse the curse balanced budget proposal and the lower cost, more transparency. These are supposed to be steps in the right direction. I have not studied these pieces of legislation yet, but I will. But basically, the objective here is to equalize payments for services, get rid of incentives for hospital mergers, and ultimately to lower out of cost, lower out of pocket cost for patients. So that's what Arrington had to say. I just wanted to kind of touch on what he had to say, but really what I wanted to get to is McKay Jemison he's the executive director of Patients Rising. And he kind of, in his statement that he submitted to the House Budget Committee, I almost want to say community, House Budget Committee, damn it. He was discussing some of the challenges that people are facing due to the healthcare consolidation and also, of course, government policies. So he shared a series of stories when he was giving his presentation. One of which was a lady named Christy from Pennsylvania. She's a type 1 diabetic. And she was describing how high deductible insurance plans and exorbitant copays typically make insurance feel more like an enemy than an ally. Even though she has this insurance, she still deals with expensive copays that are, in her estimation, unethical and that make it harder for her to get the care that she needs. So basically, she talked about how over the past decade she's been dealing with insurance benefits on her own, and there have been so many times that she had gone to the pharmacy as an insured patient and been surprised by the expensive copays. Her insurance does not insure her survival or her health. Now, Jemison also discussed the Affordable Care Act, which we're all familiar with, right? And I discussed that in my last video. That led to a substantial consolidation of the healthcare market. This consolidation created various oligopolies, especially in the realm of pharmacy benefit managers and health insurers. Like I said, three dominant pharmacy benefit managers control 79% of the market. Now, this can be blamed on lax antitrust laws and regulatory policies. I'm not really going to get into the weeds on that because that's not really where I'm trying to go, but maybe it's in a different video. And just for those of you who don't know, pharmacy benefit managers are third-party administrators of prescription drug programs for health insurance plans, employers, and other entities. They're basically like the middleman, intermediaries between insurance companies, pharmacies, drug manufacturers, big pharma. And basically, they play a huge role in the administration of prescription drug benefits. I won't get too much into the weeds on that. But basically, some of the issues here that Jemison brought up, one was a lady from California, Lisa. She has an autoimmune disease and had to fight her pharmacy benefit manager for 2 months just to get her medication approved. And once it was approved, she was dealing with a $3,000 copay. Again, she has insurance. $3,000 copay doesn't seem like that's supposed to go together. Another story. There was Brianna from Texas. She had a condition that I cannot pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. But she basically, her company forced her to go through 5 different treatments before being allowed to get on the medicine that her doctor had initially prescribed. Now, this delay led to her disease getting worse and worse. So I can't imagine the situation that she's in. So Jemison is calling for an investigation into the growing power of these benefit managers across health sectors, which include vision, dental, specialty pharmacy, yada, yada, yada. And he discusses how these managers often engineer business gains while trying to ration out care, which leads to much higher costs and often worse outcomes for patients. So he suggested that there should be five core values that should guide health policy. One would be patient satisfaction should be the primary measure of success. Patients should have competitive choices and greater control over their healthcare decisions. And as we can see from these stories, that even though they have insurance, a lot of people don't really have a lot of control because they're bound to what their insurance company is telling them to do because they can't really afford to go outside of that. The third would be financial incentives should align with long-term patient health and well-being. Four, health insurance should shield patients from major financial hardship, which it doesn't sound like it's doing. I mean, I'm sure for a lot of people it does, but I'm sure you all have, if you're not dealing with it yourself, you have friends or relatives, coworkers who are dealing with some of these problems that sound like some of the stories that Jemison told. And also, it should also be measured by advances in science, technology, and medicine that are crucial for dealing with more serious illnesses. So basically, the takeaway from this hearing, um, both Arrington and Jemison highlighted how government intervention and consolidation in the healthcare market has led to a lot of the problems that we're seeing in healthcare today. Um, Now, there are a lot of different proposed solutions. In my last video, I mentioned HR 5608. Look that up. It's also called the Access Act. Now, there's another Access Act that deals with something totally different. So remember, it's HR 5608. And basically, this kind of could help to go towards subverting the whole consolidation and monopoly system. And in my next one, I'm actually going to break that law down. So stay tuned. But I kind of just wanted to cover some of the problems with some of the other problems with our healthcare industry. It's not just the fact that most people are either reliant on their employer for health insurance, or they're reliant on the government through Medicaid or Medicare. That's a huge problem because that means that we have less control. The Access Act is about uh, basically using the money that they steal from us, giving it back to us in the form of health savings accounts, in which a lot of you have probably heard of. Maybe you even have that through your work, where you have more control over where your healthcare dollars go rather than letting insurance companies decide. So stay tuned. I'm going to do a more deeper dive on that in the next video. But again, like I said before, let me know what you think. I know this was kind of like a shorter, just kind of an overview of what's happening, but this House Budget Committee hearing was very interesting to me because, it's one of those things where they discuss the issue before Congress, but is there really a solution? Who knows? I guess we'll find out. But let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comments. But until next time, I'll catch you on side.